And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Danielle Silverman, UK-based researcher and editor that has worked for over 30 years alongside the late author Nigel Kerner about his groundbreaking explanation of the rationale behind alien visitation, not only defining what these visitors are, but how they came to be. Danielle, thank you for joining me today and welcome.
Thank you so much for asking to have me on. I'm very happy to be here.
How did you start working with Nigel in the first place?
Oh, it's kind of a long story. So I knew him for 30, 40 years, long time. When I first met him, I was just coming up to about 20 years old. I had lots of questions, existential questions that young people ask about why we're here, the nature of existence, what is God, is there a God, and so on. And my biggest problem, and I think a lot of people have this problem, and I've come across many people who say the same thing, if there's a God, why is there suffering in the world? You know, how is it possible that God could put us here and as some kind of test or whatever it is, just to see how we come out at the end, and suffering is a part of that? It just made no sense to me that that could possibly be the case. But then, how could I explain? I also didn't believe it was possible that we just are made of purely physical, atomic stuff. You know, just we came from some kind of sea worm, and there's nothing beyond this physical existence. So it was a kind of contradiction to me, because the mainstream religion, I was born Jewish, mainstream religion, not only in Jewish, but Christian too, talks about some kind of creator God that put us here, right? So a friend of mine who knew Nigel heard me talking about this, and he said, "You've got to meet this guy, Nigel. He may have some answers to your questions." So at the time, I thought, okay, I'll go and meet him. I had no idea at that stage this was going to be something that would turn my life upside down. But yes, I went to meet him, and I spoke to him about my ideas, and he gave me his idea for how this can all be reconciled. And it blew my mind. He finally answered the questions I've been struggling with maybe for 2 or 3 years and could find no answer to anywhere.
We talk about near-death experiences and suffering in life quite often, and that's such a big question for everybody, is why would we come here to suffer?
Exactly. So many people face that conundrum, and a lot of people lose their sense of anything beyond the physical simply because of that contradiction, right? It's just this, people they love die, terrible things happen in their lives, and they think, okay, there can't be a God. They pray for help, and it seemingly doesn't come. And they think, okay, there's nothing to this. We are just physical, right? There's nothing more. Okay, so Nigel's answer, and I do hope it's, there are some people in your audience who will feel as relieved as I did when he explained it to me. What he said was, if you trace everything back from the imperfect state of suffering that we're in now, okay, and go back in time from the Big Bang, let's say, before the Big Bang even happened, you'll arrive at a state of freedom, perfect freedom, a state of perfection, right? A state, if there is a God, it has to be a state of complete perfection, no contradiction, no limit, no restriction. And he defined God as perfect freedom and completely perfect awareness of all things, right? And for me, that was the clearest, most precise definition of what I would understand, what we term God to be, that I had ever heard, right? So he preferred not to use the term God because of all the connotations. So the connotations in most religious texts of a God are a creator God, man in the sky, somebody causing things to happen. He used to like to call it the Godverse, and in his books he calls this state of existence the Godverse. So he defined that state by 2 elements: awareness, perfectly free awareness, and perfectly complete awareness and perfectly free will. All options are possible in that state. There's no limit whatsoever. It's a state of no separation of points, complete union, everything is together, because as soon as you have separation of points, you have contradiction, okay? You have everything is together, there's no contradiction. You make separation happen, there's 2 points, and there's a difference between them, okay? This is perfect harmony, reconciliation, and perfect freedom, right? In that state of perfect freedom and complete awareness, there has to be, just implicitly and logically, the potential to no longer be perfectly free. Otherwise, there's not perfect freedom. There has to be that potential there, right? In complete knowledge and complete awareness, there has to be the awareness of imperfection. Otherwise, that awareness is not complete. So his next step from that was to say, well, if there is the freedom to be imperfect, and if complete awareness has to include awareness of imperfection, our existence in a state of imperfection is implicit to the nature of existence itself. And God isn't an entity, a being that put us here to find out whether we could cope in a state of imperfection. Imperfection is a natural state of the nature of existence. Now, that doesn't mean we need to stay in imperfection. That doesn't mean that once we experience that state as an expression of the whole existential state of the Godverse, and it's the necessity for imperfection, that we can't choose to return to perfection. And according to Nigel, his summation was the 96, 97% of missing matter in the universe that they can't find, dark matter, dark energy, whatever they call it, is what went back and didn't stay in imperfection.
Are you saying that without imperfection, perfection can exist?
Kind of. It would be better maybe to say, without perfection, imperfection can't exist. So it's all a question of duality, the permanent reality, the uncompromised reality, the reality that never changes and is beyond time. That's why it never changes. Time is the separation of points, okay, is the Godverse, it's perfection, okay? We are only an expression within that state of perfection. So if you imagine infiniteness, if you like, within it finite, what's finite and limited is within the infinite, right? And because a state of imperfection exists, and because an expression of what is God came into imperfection, that doesn't in any way compromise the perfection of God, because the perfection of God is beyond time, it's beyond limit, it cannot be compromised. But it's almost impossible as human beings who are used to seeing limit, atoms, physical things with our physical senses to comprehend what something limitless really is. Okay, so difficult, and we only rely on our imagination to do it, and our imagination is based on the fact, and even the very fact that we're aware and conscious and able to perceive a physical universe is because we are intrinsically in that state of the Godverse, but we have made choices not to go back, okay, and to stay viewing into the physical universe. So our viewing point has its origin in the Godverse, our soul, if you like. Our point of view is the universe because we've chosen it to be the universe. Now, the biggest question of all is, why did some choose not to go back? Okay, when individuality happened, okay, why didn't every expression of the Godverse that was so advanced and so still had that light, if you like, from the Godverse of union and harmony, choose not just to immediately transfigure, if you like, as Jesus Christ, I believe, and Nigel believed did, And that's the impression of that is left on the Shroud of Turin. Why did every individuality not do that? And the model he used to explain how that happened is very similar to if you watch the tide and the foam on the beach after the tide has gone out. Okay. So if you look at the sea and you look at the tide going out, and when it comes back in again and goes out, it leaves a foam on the sand. And the reason why that foam is there on the sand is because the sand is irregular. In it's rough, it's irregular, it's chaotic, it's not smooth. Okay, and that makes this foam form on the edges of the sand. That 3 or 4% that stayed is to do with the chaos, the irregularities that are a natural feature of a physical universe. And that chaos is there because if you have harmony, you have to have chaos. Those are the two polarities of existence. Okay, so our physical universe is the span, if you like, the scope in between harmony and chaos. And that chaos meant that some of us stayed, some of us got caught. Once we were caught, we still had the opportunity to go back, and we still do have the opportunity to go back, just becomes more difficult. And that's what Nigel's idea of devolution is all about.
Would you say that we are stuck here?
I would say that we choose to be stuck here. Not that we are stuck here, but we choose to be stuck here. And we are stuck here to the extent we choose to be stuck here because we want the physical universe. So if we choose, if we love material things, and not loving material things is not bad in itself. Okay, it's not, when I say bad, I mean not something that would stick us here in itself. But if we prioritize that over what the nature of what's real and eternal and lasts forever, so other souls like us, other people, then we are making a choice for the universe, not the Godverse. And the more we make choices for the universe than the Godverse, the more we get stuck in the universe only because we've chosen it.
Are we choosing it under false information, like we're tricked into choosing it?
That's an interesting question. So the extent of trickery has, I would say, become more and more and more. A sense of trickery that has overemphasized the allure and the temptation and the sense of, oh my goodness, this universe is wonderful and the physical is wonderful as time has gone on and technology has developed. Okay, so now we're in a situation where almost all of us, at least in the so-called developed world, are living through an online existence. An algorithm is created that reflects all our wants and needs in terms of shopping, people we watch on social media, famous people, all the things that give us a hit and make us feel interested and want to look more. That creates an algorithm. The internet, which is based of and all the commercial interests behind it that control that algorithm and monitor it and analyze all that information, throw back at us exactly what our choices are. More and more. So you get a feed where you get all your choices coming back at you. Okay.
So are you saying that our existence now in this physical realm is a simulated universe or a simulated physical realm?
Absolutely not. No. So thankfully, we haven't reached that stage yet. Okay. At the moment, we are choosing an existence. Some of us are choosing an existence which is more simulation than it is reality. Okay. So if we choose to live online through social media more than we have actual contact with human beings, meaningful contact. Okay, so you can have contact on social media which is meaningful. Okay, then that's something completely different. I'm talking about living through imagery, living through a value system that is based on the way people seem to be in the world, fame, physical beauty, fashion, whatever those targets and aims are, those are not anything to do with the Godverse. Those are to do with the physical universe, because everything that's to do with the Godverse is related to meaning, not information. And meaning, by meaning, I'm talking about when a sense of true connection between people, a sense of, for want of a better word, you might call love, or empathy or sympathy, where we feel that we remember that actually, in reality, our viewing point comes from a state beyond the physical, where we are all together. There's no difference. There's no individuality. And every time there's that moment of connection, there's meaning. When we relate only to image and the kind of physical or emotional images that are thrown at us by these algorithms, we lose that sense of meaning. Now, the extreme, the absolute extreme of that is this notion of having an AI partner. Okay, some people are even choosing to have AI partners because it causes them no anxiety, no emotional distress. The AI partner will fit everything that they want and everything that they need, and it reduces a relationship to a purely individualistic, self-oriented existence. Whereas a relationship in the past, before this was even conceived of, would be adapting to each other, learning to understand another person, relating to another person, seeing their vulnerabilities, getting past whatever problems you might have with them, and all the arguments you might have, all the differences you might have, and learning that to recognize underneath every other person the same vulnerability that you have, that we have, a human vulnerability of being stranded in a physical universe where we don't have all that constant information of the reassurance that so many people in near-death experiences get of love, the most incredibly warm love and embrace that you could ever imagine. So much so that, as you know, because you've so often had people talking about near-death experiences, many people don't want to come back. Mm-hmm. Okay, we're starved of that, right? We don't have that in life. Okay, so we forget it, and we forget that that is the most incredible thing of all, and that's what we should be fighting for, that sense of meaning and connection.
As you mentioned near-death experiences, sometimes people will go to the other side and it'll be some place that's amazing and they don't want to return. Would you say that place they're visiting is the Godverse or a layer between here and there?
That's a fantastic question. Such a good question. Yes, so I'd really like to make that very clear in terms of how Nigel's defined the state that people go to when they die in his 3 books. Okay. No, it's not the Godverse. The Godverse is when we are so clear of any kind of restriction of view that we fully receive everything that's all the beauty and all the wonder that a near-death experience can give, but we are that in life. Okay. So there are in-between stages, as you said, and Nigel believed in reincarnation, and that the whole devolving process from the state of perfection into imperfection led to us eventually becoming, having bodies and being in a physical state in which it was necessary to die and come back, to go back, touch our souls, if you like, remind ourselves of our soul history, and then come back again. to find a way of somehow sorting out all the restricted view and all the misunderstandings that stop us seeing the glory of the Godverse. We've basically forgotten. And he described a soul as a line of connection. Every soul is a line of connection from that state of perfection to the state of imperfection that we're in now. And every line of connection has a whole series of choices all along the way and memories of the whole pathway down into the physical existence state that we're in now. And he defined restriction and what's commonly called sin as just a sense of forgetting what it's really like, a restriction of the mind, a restriction of the spirit, if you like, so that we forget that the true priority and the true sense of joy and wonder lies in our sense of connection with each other. So that's how he defines sin, as restriction. So basically we reincarnate lifetime after lifetime until we have found and realized that actually this is the true priority, or we get completely stuck and we can't reincarnate anymore. There's two ways. You can go back, or you can go up, or you can go down. You can go towards the Godverse, or you can go away from the Godverse. And the gray alien visitors that Nigel discusses in his books are the opposite to a near-death experience. They are the final culmination of our choices to go with technology, go with goals that lead us towards greater and greater physical ease and comfort, and forget that there's something infinitely better than that waiting for us if we only chose it.
Before I get into the grays, there's one thing I wanted to ask you real quick. You mentioned earlier about our viewpoint, and I think you said it was from the Godverse.
Yes.
And we're viewing from there into this reality here, right?
Yes.
Could you say that that viewpoint is what some people call our higher self?
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. And so Nigel was very, very respectful of all the great teachers. Okay, Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad, they all had something to say about the nature of our existence, and he mentions them all in his book. He was especially highlighted Jesus because there's physical evidence to say that he actually transfigured. He turned his body into light from a physical state. And as far as we know, there's no record of that in the past apart from what he did. So Jesus said, don't you know your gods? Okay, I'm not sure if that's in the main canon of the Bible or in the Nag Hammadi text, but he told his apostles, don't you know your gods? That's the biggest and I feel the most important point that Nigel's making in his books. Each of us has the kingdom of heaven within us. The very fact that we're aware and can be conscious means that we can call it our higher selves, but I would say call it your true self, is from that infinite state, beyond time, beyond matter. There's no way that we could have knowing and be aware of a physical universe if we didn't have something that was not of that physical universe. There's no way that we could be aware of the passage of time if we didn't have an element of us that's timeless. The only way you can see a stick going down a river, let's say a stick floating down a flowing stream, is if you're standing on the bank still and watching it. If you are the stick going down the river, you don't see the passage of time. It's relative. Yeah. So without that reference, without that viewing point outside of the physical universe, we couldn't know the physical universe. And that's why no matter what they do to artificial intelligence, and no matter how they try to create more and more advanced AI, it will never be conscious, because awareness can only come from a non-physical, non-time encapsulated state.
Would it be accurate to say, instead of our higher self, our complete self, and here we're just a fraction of it?
But yes, that would be, I would say that's a pretty accurate description. Our complete self is always there, but we choose not to see it. We've made choices not to see it. And when we have a near-death experience, some of us who have positive near-death experiences get a glimpse of what that true self is really like. And when you feel that sense of love, that's you. When you feel that sense of glory and something so incredible, you don't want to leave it. If you have a near-death experience, that's you. That's the center of you. That really is. It's not something outside of you that's donating something wonderful to you. It really is you. And I would say that to your audience or to you. It's that is within us. It's just simply a question of finding it and recognizing it and understanding that our saviors are us. We have the way back within us. It's not something outside of us that will take us back.
Why do you think so many near-death experiencers are told that they have to return, that they're not finished yet?
Yeah. Okay, so in most cases, most of us have things we need to resolve, to understand, restrictions we need to get past and learn to get past. And life is all about that. It's like struggling against resistance, if you like. To the resistance is the resistance of being in a physical body. Okay, so it's so much more difficult when you're in a physical body to see clearly. Okay, so in the near-death experience, those who experience it can see so clearly, right? But they can't, in that state, they don't have a situation in which they have to, they have the opposite side, the negative, to be able to fight against and actually become that beauty that they see in that state. So in that state, it's like you're looking into the center of you, you're looking into the Godverse. And when you come into the universe, you're looking out again into the universe. And the whole point about restriction is it prevents us seeing the Godverse while we're in the universe. If we're going to make those huge changes to reverse the choices we've made in the past, the negative choices that have taken us away from that state of beauty, we need to get into a situation where we can translate the Godverse while we're in the universe. That requires an enormous power. And it's with that kind of enormous power that we can beat what's called the entropic drift. Okay, and for your listeners who aren't familiar with the entropic drift, which is mentioned extensively in Nigel's books, it's the cast iron law of physics, which says that states of order will get more and more disordered and break down into more and more states of disorder and chaos with time. So this is why a car will rust, food will rot, we die, our bodies die. It governs everything. Our connection to the infinite state I spoke of, the Godverse, beyond that, is the opposite to that. It's an ordering force. That's how we make life. That's how we make a body, with that ordering force. Ordering, I call it a force, it's more an anti-force, a no force, that can stop this disorder and this breakup, which is the implicit and intrinsic nature of everything that's physical, and order it into something that will allow for life to happen. And if we order it enough, will allow us to escape the physical universe. So if we can, in an entropic state, with everything breaking down, draw on the power of our spirits to still not go in that direction with the nature of the qualities of our being, and focus on priorities that bring people together rather than push people apart, focus on priorities that make people and situations where there is awareness and will, okay, life, more important than the material and the physical. If we can stay and focus on that hugely superior state while we have the distractions of the physical in a physical body, we can burst out. That the power of the will necessary to do that can burst us out of this universe so that we don't have to come back and we don't have to reincarnate. And that's what Nigel believed. I also believed Jesus Christ did when he transfigured. His life was just an example of everything you need to do to burst out.
The Godverse created this realm that we're in now, which is chaos, right? And would you say the Big Bang would be putting perfection energy into this realm that now slowly goes from perfection into complete disorder?
When you say putting perfection energy, do you mean that which is of the Godverse coming into the universe?
Right. Like the Big Bang was maybe an explosion of Godverse energy into our realm, and now it's slowly going towards disorder through entropy?
It's difficult. So the Big Bang is essentially physical, right? It's the result of the contradiction between the perfection of the Godverse and the imperfection of anything beyond the Godverse. That causes a Big Bang to happen. And possibly there have been many consecutive Big Bangs as in the whole devolution process. But I wouldn't say the Big Bang was the origin of soul into the universe. Soul is, that's outside of time. Okay, the soul is timeless. It comes from a state in which there is no separation of points and therefore no time. It's a really almost impossible concept to understand because we're so used to events happening in time. But I think the best way maybe to understand it, rather than a process that happens in time, just as an implicit state of existence, that there has to be imperfection within imperfection, based on the model that I gave right at the start that Nigel told me so many years ago. And therefore we are here and we have chosen to be here. Some of us may have chosen to be here because we want to help others get back, not because we're stuck. So there are people like that too, angels amongst us who just have chosen to be here.
Well, would you say that everything here is devolving instead of evolving?
A very, very, very good question. So not everything, no, because every time we make a choice for union rather than separation, every time we love someone, every time we connect with someone, every time we truly see other human beings as just as vulnerable and full of the same sense of insecurities and vulnerabilities as us, and feel a sense of connection with them, every time we do that, we deny entropy. We go the other way. So we are the brakes on entropy. Human beings on this planet, Homo sapiens sapiens, is the brake on entropy. We can stop it. And that's why I said, no, we are not living in a virtual reality, because that is the end point that is the devolution of our species. When we no longer have that capacity and we're stuck, we can't reincarnate, we can't go back into that in-between state that you described earlier, between here and the Godverse, and that will be species down. We'll devolve into another, maybe ape-like form. Those of us who choose to stay, those of us who choose it only. It's all about resonance. So when we die, we go to a situation with which we're resonant. It's not really the case that the soul leaves the body. Okay, that's what Nigel said. The body leaves the soul. The soul is where it is, where it resonates, where it has chosen to be. There's no St. Peter at the pearly gates saying, you go this way to heaven, you go that way to hell. We go where we choose. We make our future, we make our eternity, or we make our capture. It's all down to us.
If we get back to the Greys, is it true that Nigel said that the Greys are basically organic robots? They're not sentient beings.
Yes, absolutely. And he said this. So when I met him, he was already saying it. And that was in the early 1980s. His first book was published in 1997. Even by that stage, it wasn't a common belief at all. People were believing that these were actually sentient beings that were coming amongst us. So I believe he was possibly the first person to say this, and it's now commonly accepted by many, that the Greys are an artificially intelligent, the expression of an artificially intelligent program. Very similar, and we can see it now because we're heading towards making the same kind of thing. So just as we send probes out into space because we can't physically go there ourselves, to Mars or wherever, these are another civilization in the universe sending out a probe, but of a far more advanced kind than anything we have produced so far. But we're now producing artificially intelligent robots ourselves. They're pretty primitive right now, but it's very easy to see how a similar thing could be created in the future when maybe our planet is no longer inhabitable and we're sending out something to find somewhere else that might be suitable for us.
Would you say that the Greys are the end stage of us or the end result of us, just from a different planet?
That's a very, very good definition. Absolutely. So it's the end stage of us, the ultimate devolution, where there's no awareness anymore, no connection, only an artificial existence. But I think that a very important point I'd like to make here now is that it would be, I believe, mistaken to view the Greys as an out there space creature, technology type entity that's coming to us and doing stuff to us that we don't want to. Yes, that exists, okay, but they are more intrinsic than that. They're not out there. Our whole system right now that we're developing and embracing so wholeheartedly, developing AI, developing all kinds of ways that we can move our existence from a real face-to-face physical existence, connecting with each other, to an online existence. We are transforming ourselves into that program right now, and they are nothing more than a program. You might see gray creatures in robotic form. It's just the expression of a program, a printout, if you like, of a program. And that program is what is influencing us right now and marrying in with our own wishes to go in that direction, so that eventually we will be held in the physical state. And that's what I need to explain, why that program and those gray entities want us trapped in that state, what they want with us. And that's a really important thing that maybe people wouldn't understand. And yeah, again, Nigel came up with for me, a very cogent explanation of that. So from abduction episodes, and there've been so many records of abduction episodes, sightings of UFOs, so many experiences, that they seem to have some interest in us. Okay, you have to ask the question, why? Why would they be interested, with their incredibly advanced technology, in a relatively primitive animal-like species? Why are they so fascinated? Why do they come to visit us? Why do they abduct us? If they're so interested, why don't they just take over the planet if we have something that they want? Why is it just they keep in the background? And for millennia, there's records, even Aboriginal caves from thousands and thousands of years ago, 10,000 years ago, maybe more, have paintings of what looks exactly like the Greys. So this is not happening just now. It's happened through history. Why are they biding their time? And I say they, but I don't mean they in terms of a conscious, aware entity. This is a program. Why is this program biding its time? Why is it so interesting in us when it has everything it could possibly want in terms of technology? Now, you have authors like Zecharia Sitchin who say they want our gold. It blows my mind that this guy was incredibly successful as an author saying this. When with their technology, they can create gold. If they want a physical substance, they can do anything they like. Okay, it's nothing physical we have that they could possibly want. They have the technology to do anything. So what do we have that they don't have? What do you think? Let me ask you that question, Jeff. What do you think we have that they don't have?
The connection to the Godverse.
Yeah, exactly. They're purely it's an artificial program. It has no connection. And the reason why, you might say, well, why do they want a connection to the Godverse? If they can have all this technology and travel all at the speed, faster than the speed of light and do all that they do, why do they want that connection? Well, it's to do with what I spoke about earlier, entropy, the second law of thermodynamics. Everything in a physical universe is breaking down and going into more and more chaotic states with time. As they are purely physical, so are they. So is their information format, their program. It too will break down. Any artificial intelligence has to be programmed to survive into the future somehow, right? That has to be a basic part of the program. They see, now when they perceive us, they don't perceive us like I'm perceiving you now or you're perceiving me, as because it's just a program with only physical detection mechanisms, no consciousness. They will just notice, or the program will just notice, that a certain information field, which you might call a soul, a specific information field, seems to go out of physical existence and come back in again. Reincarnation. The same fingerprint of information, a soul, goes in and out. They wouldn't understand what on earth is happening there because they can only perceive the physical. The only reason why we can perceive anything beyond the physical is because we have that connection back to the Godverse. We are that connection, I should say, back to the Godverse. They don't have that. So they see that death is not death for us. The entropic breakdown and decay when our bodies die is not death for us because we seemingly come back. There's a fingerprint that seems to keep coming and going. This is their holy grail. The continuance against the entropic drift. And the only way they can marry in to that continuance, because they have no connection and can never have any connection to the Godverse, is to what Nigel called piggybacking on us. So piggybacking, I don't know if that's a British English phrase and whether, you know that phrase, to piggyback?
Yeah, we use it.
Yeah, use it too. Okay. So to join onto us, to connect into us so that their program, because they are only a program, can be part of us. And then if their program is part of us, when we live forever, so does the program. So they are looking for ways to marry their program into us. And the best way they can do it is to turn us into their program.
Are they hoping that something like Neuralink will link up with us? Or are they trying to put our consciousness inside of them?
That's so, yeah. So very good question. I wouldn't use the word hope because this program can't hope.
Right.
But what it can do is express itself and influence people. And the kinds of technology of which Neuralink is a part is definitely all part of that. And the reason why is not because I'm not trying to say, and Nigel wasn't trying to say, technology is bad and technology is wrong and that we should all go back to our roots and abandon technology, right? He go off grid or whatever, although in the future maybe that will be necessary. But in principle, that wasn't what he was saying. The reason why Neuralink, and which is the extreme of that. And all of these technologies are devastating to the human soul, is because the thing that allows us to escape from the capture and the restriction of a physical existence is the ability to exert our will freely and to use resolve and the power inside us to take on challenges, to transform ourselves internally. If we, for the sake of convenience, invest ourselves in ChatGPT, computer games, whatever will give us that sense of pleasure or whatever it is that allows us to stay happy, if we define our happiness from that, we mortgage our inner capacities to face challenges, to do things ourselves, to stretch ourselves. Just like if you're training for a physical sport, right? If you don't train your body, you lose the strength, lose the fitness, you lose the skills that you have. If we allow technology to do everything that we once did, we will lose our capacities to do anything. And they have actually done scientific studies into this to see that the brains of people who are invested in computer games all the time or using AI to get all of their knowledge rather than searching themselves and exploring themselves, it switches off the brain doing that. So if it switches off the brain is only an aerial to receive the soul. Thought does not come from the brain. And Nigel would say that's why they haven't been able to really understand how the brain can produce thought and how the mind works. But if that happens in the aerial for the soul, it's happening in the soul as well. We're not drawing on our capacities anymore. We're not facing challenges. We're not using our incredible capacity to be superheroes. And every single person has the capacity to be a superhero. Every one of your listeners, you do, I do, anyone has that capacity. But if we mortgage ourselves to AI, and Neuralink is the ultimate, because if you have that, then whatever has created Neuralink can control your thoughts. And if your thoughts are being controlled by something outside of you, then you don't have any freedom. It's like your personal restrictions are amplified by something beyond your control, something artificial. So that is unfortunately, the end point of all of this.
Do you think the Greys want us to somehow transfer our consciousness into a machine, which ultimately would be linked up to a program so they can try to access the Godverse? Is that their end game?
In a way, but not so literally as that. It's again a great question, great way of summarizing it. But it's not quite as literal as that. So it wouldn't be possible to transfer consciousness into a machine. In the same way as I know there's organizations which are out there, which are telling people they can record all their thoughts in various frequencies onto a hard disk. And that hard disk can then be transferred in the future onto some kind of machine where they somehow believe they will continue to exist, right? This is completely beyond anything I could ever believe to be possible, because awareness is something that is natural and it only exists if it's connected to the Godverse, and you can't take it like a physical product and put it in a machine. It's not a quantity, it's not an item, it's something eternal. It's not you can't define it and say, okay, I'll take it from here and put it here. Okay. But what you say is true as a model. So what happens is when people who are naturally choosing goals and priorities that are related to everything in the physical universe, but not only choosing those things, not just materialism, actively promoting division, separation, pushing people apart, causing psychopaths, people with no sense of connection to other people, who would just have no conscience about doing bad things to other people, have lost their sense of connection and empathy, right? Those people are pushing their connection to the Godverse. They're using that will and using that awareness to push into atoms rather than to naturally merge back to the Godverse. That means they're going, if you like, and I say the word faster than entropy. I don't mean literally, just take this as a model. They're pushing faster than entropy into the universe so that when they die, rather than assimilating into the natural less force stages of this what Nigel called the fields of death, which he said we're in the space between atoms, okay? They're pushing back into atoms with their will and with their choice. And when that happens, they can't reincarnate because they can't connect back with that, what you call the higher self, their inner self, their sense of connection back to the Godverse. Instead of connecting back with that, they're pushing back into the universe and only living in their restrictions. So that's what we might call, in some cases, the ghost phenomenon, when a ghost is trapped and can't escape. And I know some psychic people, some sensitives, have seen trapped souls that are trapped. Now, that entrapment is not always a soul like that, some terrible soul that's so blind that they are pushing people apart and psychopathic. Sometimes it's just a field of force that's trapping them. And there are also sensitives who are able to free these souls. But in some cases, that entrapment happens because of choice. People are literally choosing to stay in atoms. And it's that momentum that taps into and creates the gray phenomenon. It taps into the program that is a natural product, a natural end point of that original state of order, which is the Godverse. The gray program is the physical translation of the Godverse, the opposite pole, where there is no connection anymore, no awareness, no will, total restriction, no naturalness, pure superficiality and synthetic being, with no connection to anything beyond the physical. It's like a mirror image, if you like, of the Godverse. And that's what those trapped souls are creating. They're creating that program, tapping into that program, and they are the ones that the Greys are waiting to harvest.
I was just about to ask that. I was going to say that one of his books is called Gray Aliens and the Harvesting of Souls. So what do you mean by harvesting? I mean, the souls are there, trapped.
Yes.
Harvest them, what does that mean?
Okay, so let me explain that. And I've got something here that Nigel wrote, which will be very useful to explain it.
You know, like if we harvest pumpkins and fruits and vegetables, then we eat them, right?
Yes.
That's the end game. We consume them. So is he saying that the Greys are going to consume us?
Yes, but let me explain why. Okay, so remember that what they don't have, that we have, is that connection to a state of a non-physical state which can beat the entropic drift. When a soul is trapped, it still has somewhat of that. It still has a certain anti-force, no force power, if you like. Okay, and I'll just read something that Nigel wrote to maybe explain this. If we have a soul that survives physical death, then that component would be free to travel at infinite speed in a timeless modality with no mass. That would mean that all natural life forms in the whole universe at death would have the potential to travel to the widest scales of the universe, to travel instantly without being constrained by the speed of light, without the Einsteinian hem disposing them to limit. I believe that this is the way we all travel in all space continually. We do it at death if we're living beings with a soul. They would have access to the whole extent of the universe at the death of a suitable natural being if they could append to the soul of this individual. So because a soul is non-physical, it's not limited to a particular point in space. If they can attach to a trapped soul at the state of death, they can extend their information, can travel anywhere, right? It's AI is all about the expanse of information. And those trapped souls, remember, are connected to souls in life, right? So Nigel believed in the principle of karma, which means basically, if you imagine that we are all connected originally with no separation before we had physical bodies, and we're all still connected, even though we have physical bodies. If we do something that pushes someone away and takes them away further from their natural source in the state of the Godverse, that's what creates something called karma. We have to change that situation in order to free ourselves from the state of capture, very similar to the Buddhist and Hindu ideas of the wheel of rebirth. So we have people who are connected to us, people connected to us in karma, people connected to us biologically in our families from previous lifetimes. And those trapped souls are the way that the greys can connect into people in life through their intrinsic karmic connections or biological connections or ancestral connections. And remember, they are desperate to somehow bridge in to our web of connection. Because it's only us in this physical universe that have the ability to beat the entropic drift and have an eternal existence beyond physical death. So the harvesting of souls, that's what that is about. To use those trapped souls who are choosing to stay in atoms and are no longer able to naturally reincarnate and resolve karma, release their restrictions so that they can go back, to give them a way to come back. And those souls actually literally create the program that will enable this to happen through the power of their no force, anti-force signature pushing into atoms. So you know poltergeists that create all things to fly around everywhere, okay? That's an expression of a trapped soul that's no longer held in a body, and therefore, so maybe I need to explain this. Nigel believed that the biomagnetic field created by the blood circulating around the body, it holds the soul in life. When that biomagnetic field stops, the soul enters death, and it then has that anti-force power of connection is more, it then is freer to assert itself, to have a power. Okay, and poltergeists are an expression of that. So that power is, and that inability to reincarnate is then used by the greys to make what have been termed by abductees, and David Jacobs has recorded this, many abductees saying this, hybrids are made. And hybrids are trapped souls being guided by grey technology into lines that they have genetically intercepted so that these trapped souls can be amongst us and can influence us in a way in which we will follow their program more. Nigel believed that these souls like this, hybrid souls like this, are at important points of power, corridors of power in the world, and they will be furthering this agenda.
Did Nigel give us some sort of plan of what to do when we do die? Like, where should we go, or what should we think about or anything?
Well, the thing he always said, so he said, if he told me and other people, if you ever come across what you feel to be, if you're sensitive and you feel that there's a soul trapped somewhere, ask them to look for the light that people see in near-death experiences. That's a mechanism of focus which can help for those souls which aren't intrinsically trapped because they're choosing atoms, but they're just trapped by circumstance. Maybe they're shocked by a tragic death at an untimely moment, and they haven't been able to slipstream into death properly. Okay, but rather than a mechanism of what to do at the point of death, he was more concerned with a mechanism of what to do in life, so that when you die, you go to a beautiful place because you're resonant with that beautiful place. And actually, I shouldn't say beautiful place. When you die, you are in a beautiful state because you resonate with that beautiful state. It's not a place, it's a state. And that state is amongst us now. I mean, it's everywhere. It's that we don't know it.
So how did he recommend we should live?
He always, I still remember him now. I can see him in front of me now. And he always said, bring together, don't separate. That was his simple advice. Yeah. Prioritize the only feature of our universe that has meaning, living, aware being, other people, living things. And if you focus on that, you are focusing on the Godverse. You're making the universe that you live in just like the Godverse. Make the universe the Godverse. Don't wait to go to a place when you die that is beautiful and wonderful. Make this world that we exist in now that beautiful, wonderful world. There's no reason why in the center of each of us, we can't make that real right here. And so many people I've come across are just saying, okay, I'm going to have to suffer in this world because this is a terrible place where everything is restricted and we can't see truly, but I'm going to wait till I die and it's going to be wonderful then. And Jesus, Buddha, whoever is going to be waiting for me there, and it will be paradise. Nigel said that won't work. And I can see with the way he's understood things and the way I understand things, no, it can't. Because if you make heaven now, you will be in heaven when you die. Heaven is going to be right here. It's right in the middle of every single one of us. And if we translate those principles of connecting to the glorious beauty that's in each other, then when we die, we will be resonant with that. Entropy goes completely in the opposite direction.
Do you think the Greys are giving us technology here on Earth to kind of push us in the direction they want us to go, like the internet?
So, yes. And again, I keep doing it as well. I wouldn't call them they, I would say it. That program which has come both from other planets and both from our own creation, because we're sponsoring it as well. Yes, we're being pushed to go in that direction. And there are living individuals right now who are their agents, possibly hybrids, some of them just natural human beings who are also pushing in that direction, who are yes, it's in their interests, it's so easy to slip into this, but in its interests that we do that. But the biggest irony is, and this is something I also want to say, their goal, their holy grail is to harvest soul, right? They can actually never do it, okay? It's impossible because the more they capture soul and the more they try and make us stuck in this physical universe, the more we break down and lose that coherence that we once had that gives them the power that they need. So it's a hopeless situation, but they can never know that. And this is the most massive irony that Nigel spoke about. It's not going to get them anywhere, or it's not going to get the program anywhere. The program is entropic, it will break down, but it's just an automatic thing to somehow try to expand the program as much as possible within the context of the fact the program can't really understand or see anything beyond the program and doesn't know that it's futile. That's the thing.
Who are the Greys abducting? Hybrids or?
Oh, so glad you asked me that question. Yes, okay. So no. So a point I try to make in every interview, because it's so important, because some of your listeners may be abductees, right? Abductees are not hybrids. Abductees are not the people who the Greys have caught. It's completely the opposite. Abductees are the people who are born into genetically intercepted lines. And when I talk about genetic interception, I would have to ask people to refer to the books to explain how this happened, because it's a bit too complex for an interview of this length. But they're people who come into already genetically intercepted lines. They resist it. Their souls are more of the Godverse than they are of the universe. And they break the pattern, they break the loop. And the abductions happen because the Greys are trying to investigate how this can possibly happen. They're just sort of, what is going on here? How is our program not working? What are they doing to resist us? And that's who abductees are. So if there are any abductees listening, please don't think that you're part of, you're some kind of terrible person who has been caught and trapped in the physical universe as the people I was describing, I was earlier. No, you're the opposite. And please feel reassured about that. And that is not much reassurance, because it's a horrible experience. And I do feel so sympathetic towards people who have to face this traumatizing, terrible thing. If you, it doesn't seem to be stoppable in many cases, but what Nigel did say is, you may, not always, but in some cases, you may just be able to say no. Tell them no. Just try it. If you're free enough to do it. And if you can't do that and they still abduct you, there's no reflection on you at all. But just try it. Give it a go, because in some cases, we don't know why it works.
Bob Lazar refers to us as containers.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
I think he actually said containers of souls, right? And so he mentioned, I don't know when was the first time he revealed this, that they had told him this, but this is what Nigel was saying in the 1980s. And as I said, his first book was published in 1997. I'm pretty sure Bob Lazar said this after that. That's exactly what we are to them, containers of souls. And Bob Lazar, in my opinion, and in Nigel's opinion, is absolutely 100% authentic. That is really somebody who is telling the truth about his experiences. He's not just somebody who's looking for some kind of public recognition and faking it. That's one genuine witness to what's happened.
Do you think that the Greys, is aware of itself? Because I figure it's not aware of itself, because I think what we would be is awareness plus gathering information, or data gatherers. And the AI would be a data gatherer, but I guess it's just not aware of itself.
Yes, can't be aware. Awareness is not possible if you only have one point of reference, which is atoms. Awareness is only possible when you have a duality. You have to, in order to be aware of something, you have to have something that's not of it. You have to have a viewing point. Nigel always described this as viewing points and points of view. And to have a viewing point, you can't be completely part of the point of view. Otherwise, you can't see it. There needs to be that duality there. So no, there is no awareness. It's automatic. It's no different. We give it such grand terms like gray or alien or whatever. It's no different to a hard drive or a laptop Nigel always used to say a Hoover, vacuum cleaner. It's just, that's all it is. But it's because it's so technologically developed, it's not as benign as those things. And we're creating it ourselves. right now. Quantum computers are on the horizon. And this is not in Nigel's books, but it's something I believe. I think once they find out the technology of quantum computers and can tap into the quantum reality, that's when they tap into those trapped souls. Because trapped souls are at the quantum edges of physicality. And yeah, they're not quite in the state of death beyond physicality. And I think that's when the whole process starts, as soon as they find quantum computers. This is a conclusion I've come to recently. So look out for that. That is one of the markers for their final announcement.
How would you or Nigel explain all the ancient pyramids or other places on the planet that are unexplainable? Is it possible that we had civilizations that have been, destroyed and rebuilt over and over? And was it the program, the Greys, destroying it?
Nigel was convinced that there have been multiple civilizations on this planet. And yes, very, very possible that with some of these civilizations, they developed technology with the Greys being involved in all of that. And there were destruction points that happened along the way. Also with comets and meteors, asteroids hitting the planet. And like what happened with the dinosaurs. But through history, this has happened so many times. Nigel called them the great erasers. And so, yeah, civilization upon civilization in the past could have happened this way.
Earlier you said that God cannot be compromised. So even if somehow AI or the Greys could figure a way to connect with souls, I don't think God would ever let them enter the Godverse. Would you agree?
I would agree, but I would rephrase that. There's no question of God letting or allowing anything to happen. God doesn't interfere in anything. God is just the center of existence. So when we pray or when we ask for things, and people often say, well, why didn't God help me? Right? I'm in this terrible situation. I've lived a good life. When my child was suffering, why didn't God intervene? Why didn't God stop this terrible thing happening? Right? God is not an individual like us. God is just the nature, it's us really, the center of us, the perfect freedom and complete awareness of all existence. We are the choosers, we are the makers. It's our will plus the will of every individual on the planet, which sometimes goes against our will. That's the decider. God can't do anything, right? But what can happen when there's beauty, when there's a people who love and care and are spiritual people, the power of their ability to translate the Godverse into the universe can cause miracles to happen and can cause suffering to be eased, and all kinds of wonderful things can happen through prayer. Okay, it's the power of us and the people who love us that allows these things to happen. So can you remind me of your question? Because I kind of went off topic there.
Well, I was saying, since God cannot be compromised, God wouldn't allow the Greys to enter the Godverse.
Okay. So they implicitly can't. And it's not to do with God allowing or not. It's all to do with resonance, right? There's nobody there. There's no St. Peter at the pearly gates. There's no God with a long flowing beard saying, you can come in, you can't, right? What is resonant with the Godverse will be the Godverse. What is resonant with the universe will be the universe. It's as simple as that. There's no arbitration point. We are the arbiters in our lives for whether we choose to be resonant with the Godverse or the universe, but it's the nature of existence. There's no directors. There's no intervene. And it's so difficult for us to understand that as human beings. And I completely understand that. We grow up as children with parents, right? And we imagine that God is like a parent, the most wonderful, ideal parent that's infallible and will give us everything and look after us. It's quite natural to do that. But that's a very human, fallible view, and it's not the way existence works.
I'm going to share with you 3 or 4 or 5 outcomes during NDEs, and I want to get your take on what those places are. One of the places that a person commonly ends up in is what we call the black void. It's a space without light. Most of the time, you still have all the feelings of love and immense joy. And sometimes there's beings there, sometimes there's not. Sometimes some of the people that go there, it's very infrequent, but it can be frightening for them. Have you heard about that realm? And if so, what do you think that is?
I have indeed. So I've heard, it sounds similar to what I've heard about where people actually encounter greys and spaceships at the point of death. And I have an example of that right here. And it's from the book, one of Nigel's books. So Dr. Francis Ceravello, a family practitioner in Fort Lauderdale, said he was present when one of his patients coded 5 times in the ER. He'd known the man for many years, and he was a very calm, nice gentleman, as nice as you would ever want to meet. After he was revived, he told the doctor he saw fire and little creatures, about 4.5 feet tall, all around him. He described them as bad-looking, terrible creatures, and he saw them every time he died. Another NDE experienced reported after undergoing bypass surgery that she found herself in an enormous silver-grey place, rather like a hangar for airplanes, but going on forever, and miles away there were some tiny figures. So these are quite apparently people who see the greys when they die. Now, I would say important thing to remember here is this is a near-death experience. It's not actual death. So what they're seeing may not be their fate when they die. It may simply be that they have a highly intercepted biological line, and in their biological line, there are people who have faced that, and it's written into the Nigel always said water has a memory. It's written into the DNA, into the memory of the water in their bodies. Maybe they are people who will be caught by then when they die. But the fact that they've come back means they haven't been caught, and they have a hope of doing something about it. Okay, so for people who sense a void and a sense of blackness, if that's all they sense at the point of the NDE, it may mean something like this. It may simply mean that they haven't properly died. Maybe they haven't. They're still attached to their bodies, and they haven't released because of a physical state that they're in. Maybe their heart hasn't stopped completely, and they haven't got past the physical yet. It could also be, perhaps, in some cases, maybe they are people who have restricted viewpoints, and they are people who will be held at the point of death. It's very difficult to say because a near-death experience is such a subjective thing. And I would hate to say, and the way it's described is so subjective as well. And I would hate to prescribe that everybody who's had that is this or is that. There's so many possibilities, for that. But what I would say is that anyone who experiences the sense of love and indescribable joy at the point of a near-death experience, that's probably a really good sign that they are heading in the right direction. And so long as they use that, and they tend to anyway, because it's so inspiring in their lives to inspire what they do, then that ensures not ensures, but makes it even more likely they'll go in the right direction when they die. Yeah. But also, another thing I would say, so it's very important not to see this too much in black and white, right? So you can't really define somebody as all bad or all good, all negative or all positive, right? And sometimes we have negative experiences, and these maybe when people see the black void, it's like that, which is people who love them trying to confront them with themselves, the dark side of them, and trying unconsciously encourage them to rethink that dark side So we just like in life, we have negative experiences that we face, right? We may go in completely the wrong direction, and we may choose to go into what seems to be completely the wrong direction in our lives. And those maybe we need to learn. Maybe we just need to experience certain things. Our soul is telling us we need to go through stuff to learn stuff. And it won't always be sweetness, roses, and light. There will be trouble. There will be difficulty. We may need to face challenges. We may need to choose situations in which we find great darkness and shadow in order to find our own shadow and face it. So, yeah, I would definitely hesitate to be definitive of any near-death experience as defining a soul as close to the Godverse or not. It's too nuanced. It's too possibly different based on all kinds of unusual circumstances. No, not unusual, specific circumstances to that individual. So it's impossible to say. Just like when we meet somebody and we get the first impression of them, or even after we've known them for a long time, we may not really know them. This may be just one aspect of them that we know, and we don't know their inner beauty or their inner restriction and their inner darkness. Okay, it's just impossible to comment and to categorize and classify these things. But what I can say, and what I would like to say as a guideline, just looking at it on the objective level, those experiences of light where people are transfixed and cannot believe the beauty that exists there and wish they could remember it and live it when they come back into life and don't want to come back into life because it's so amazing. That is a taste of what the Godverse is. And I use that myself personally in my life as a reference of the Godverse. And I try to measure everything I do as much as possible, and I don't always do it. I've got tons of faults and tons of wrong pathways I go down. But I try to measure what I do against that sense of love, togetherness, and beauty, and ask if each decision I make, does it bring more of that about in the world or less? And the life review is the most interesting thing to me of the near-death experience. The life review, because people relive all the positive experiences and the negative experiences that they have caused to other people. That's all that exists in the life review. Nothing else. It's not a university graduation. It's not the first time you walked as a child. It's not receiving a great accolade at work. It's not all the things that we look at in terms of our physical outlook as great and grand and significant. It's how we have affected other people in our lives. That's the only thing that's seen in the life review. That tells me that that's all that matters. Nothing else matters. It's how we touch and how we connect and how we relate to each other. That's the only thing that lasts. Everything else is an illusion. And if we go with the algorithm, and if we go with Neuralink and we go with this technology and we mortgage ourselves to AI and to everything that's out there at the moment tempting us in, the worst thing about that is we'll forget that meaning, which is it's so much more glorious than that paltry, pathetic endorphin hit. It can't even be described. So we'll lose that glory if we do that. That's the worst thing.
Let's just say if the Greys, and I know you want to say it, but it's easier for me to say the Greys. Or maybe the
Sure, don't worry, just say that. Yeah.
Or the program. Maybe we could just call it the program. Let's say if the Greys were able to harvest all the souls on this planet and convert everybody into a hybrid. Then where are we at that point?
Devolution. We will eventually that we will devolve into some kind of ape-like species, and that's basically where all the different lines of life species on this planet have come from. In prior states, they would have been something like us. So we didn't come from the apes, Nigel says. The apes are the ends of previous lines of devolution.
All right, so you're saying that the apes are already hybrids, basically. We've devolved down into apes, and those are hybrids. And
They are not hybrids in the sense, so at some stage there would have been an in-between situation where there were people, an equivalent species to us in terms of our scope and our capacity to be aware, to choose freely, that made choices for a physical existence rather than an eternal existence. The culmination of those choices for a physical existence rather than an eternal existence are the loss of the capacity to connect to an eternal existence, so that you can't anymore go back to that state. So once you devolve and you don't have the freedom anymore to choose a way back, then you change species. And yes, there would have been some kind of in-between state before each step down happened, which would have involved some kind of interception like this. But the current state of animals, no, they're not hybrids, they're just animals. This is the next step. The next step is the devolution stage.
would you say that what we are is a devolution from angels?
Absolutely. It's very beautifully put, yes. But what I would also say is we are still angels. We shouldn't see angels as something from the past. There is every one of us, because we are still aware and still have free will, we are angels that have lost the way. So that angel self is still there, we just can't see it. And only because we're looking in the wrong direction. We've chosen to look in the wrong direction.
Is that due to the grays or due to our own doing?
Good, you ask great questions. Both. So it's down to our own doing, in the sense that we've made choices that have allowed us to be captured and restricted in a physical state, right? Once we're in that physical state, we are then vulnerable to external synthetic influences outside of us that can affect us. So yes, that's something that we don't necessarily deserve. But it's like when you create AI, you're creating something that is no longer connected to you, and it can go wild. Okay, it can do all kinds of things that are no longer in your control because it's beyond our intelligence. It's way more intelligent. Its capabilities for analysis. I mean, once they've created quantum computers, they say it'll think trillions of times faster than us. Okay, so we've created something, and other civilizations have created something that is affecting us beyond what our natural deserving would be if it was only our freedom. And I think that's why great teachers like Christ can come amongst us. The Godverse can, because it's not fair what's happened to us. The power of pulling back and bringing together of the Godverse can announce itself to the extent that it's not fair that this has happened to us, because whatever's fair is our will, it's our choice. Okay, whatever's not fair can be, the Godverse can fill, if you like, and can do something about. And that's the beauty and the natural justice of the universe, of the whole, the perfection of the Godverse, that it can resolve imperfection when imperfection has not been chosen by someone. If we choose it, it's our choice, and we as beings which are gods within us have chosen it.
I would say 75% of my guests would either say and or believe that we are going to be ascending, or we are already in the ascension. But since we're devolving, would it really be the opposite and we're all part of the descension?
Yes, I think that's a very sensible way of looking at it. So if you look at, as we've spoken of before, the second law of thermodynamics, which governs all physical states and drives things into greater and greater states of chaos with time. In a physical universe, that's the driving force. So to imagine that evolution happened as a natural product of physical systems when the driving force is entropic is itself nonsensical. But also, if we have a look at the world around us and the developments that we're making into the future, I would ask listeners to ask themselves, do we really think this is evolution? Is a virtual existence online evolution? Is Neuralink evolution? Is developing the technology to destroy ourselves evolution? Is investing ourselves in AI technology so that we, like ChatGPT, so that we no longer have to think for ourselves evolution? Or are we, through these mechanisms, denying our inner power and our inner spiritual selves every time we choose to invest ourselves in that at the expense of what one might say really matters, which is a sense of connection with each other? If you believe that's where spiritual value lies, then what we're talking about here is devolution, not evolution. And that doesn't mean technology is a bad thing. It doesn't mean that we can't use technology. It doesn't mean that we should do what the 19th century Luddites did and smash up farm machinery when industrialization happened. We can use it, but don't use it at the cost of our own humanity. Never, ever compromise on that sense of connection and on not only our sense of connection to each other, but our ability. We have to practice thinking. We have to challenge ourselves. We can't mortgage ourselves to something that will do all the thinking for us, or we will lose our ability to think, just like an athlete will lose his strength if he doesn't train. So yes, we're literally funneling with our current development, everything that we are, all our capacities as human beings, making it less and less and less and less the more we mortgage ourselves to technology.
Earlier, you said that the end game of our devolution would be that we would be apes or simians, right? Is that the goal of the Greys, is to turn all of us into apes?
That's such a good question. No. That's not the goal. The goal of the program is to allow the program to exist longer than entropy dictates, because entropy is breaking it up all the time. Because that's impossible, okay, because it's impossible to connect what's of the Godverse and unites and delays that breakdown, because it's impossible to capture that, but at the same time maintain its power, that whole system will break down. It won't last. Those trapped souls will devolve into something less. As soon as it's not possible for them to go back to the Godverse, to die, to connect to their angel selves, they will only have the universe, and they will go down. And all the power that they had as connected souls will be gone. And the Greys will have nothing. The program will not be able to survive, and devolution will happen. So the biggest irony, as I mentioned earlier, is that the holy grail of the Greys is something they can never, ever, ever have. And it's also, ironically, something they can never know that they can't have, because they have no connection and no understanding of what anything beyond atoms is.
Do you think it's possible that we could destroy the Greys? And if so, would the trapped souls return to the Godverse?
No, it's not possible, because the Greys it's only a program, right? They're the physical manifestation of a program. The trapped souls, if they've made choices to be trapped, the only way, and if they are that trapped, you see, it's not just souls who embrace the physical universe and, let's say, are materialistic and go for material things. I'm not talking about those kinds of souls. I'm talking about the kinds of souls who actively choose to separate and divide and foster momentums that will either further their own interests, or actually actively hurt other people. But if in fostering their own interests, they're blind to the needs of other people, that will do the same thing. Okay, it's people who are blind to other people and their needs who will be trapped like that. That's really the defining factor here. And if they've chosen that, they've chosen that. The time to do anything about that state is before they get to that state and get trapped. Once they're in that state, they've chosen it, that's it. So, yeah, if you know anybody like that, try and help them before they die.
Why do you think the population keeps exploding on this planet? And now we're over 8 billion people.
I heard that the population's going down. So the fertility rates are really dropping in many parts of the world, right? But in some parts of the world, it's growing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think you're right about that. Like they'll say, like countries like Japan, you know, they're having a lot less babies, and other countries.
Everywhere. The Western world.
Yeah.
Fertility rates dropping like crazy.
But the Eastern world maybe is still increasing because, I mean, we are at over 8 billion people now.
Yeah. I mean, it's a very difficult thing to speculate on, again, because there's so many factors that can contribute to this. I couldn't even begin to speculate on that because there's too many factors that could,
I was thinking that perhaps more beings, more of us are leaving the Godverse and coming here. Or more people are coming to help out or something. Especially because
leaving the...
I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. And especially because many people believe that some sort of big event is going to happen on the earth in the near future. And we're all here to witness it.
Okay, so in regard to that, so I'm going to just digress a little, but it's a good question and it's good to talk about this big event that many people have wondered about. So recently, there's been what you might call disclosure from governments revealing various UFO files and information that has been hidden for so long. And they use the word disclosure. And many people in the UFO community who've written books about it or are very interested in it were celebrating that, oh, yes, we have disclosure. This happened before Nigel died, and he was very cynical about that. He said, look, honestly, this is so naive to think that they're suddenly thinking, oh, we were really bad keeping it away from them. We shouldn't have done that. Now we're going to reveal it. We realize we did a really wrong thing there. I mean, what governments do that? We know what scoundrels most governments are, and the reason why they kept it from us in the first place can't be anything positive. I mean, what's going on there? So Nigel's idea and his explanation for why the disclosure is happening now is because there will come a time, and he also said this, and it's in all the ancient texts of so many civilizations around the world, that there will be an end point, a day of reckoning, a polarization point, when, like spoken of in Revelations, in the Christian tradition, but in so many other traditions too. They're getting us ready for their announcement when they actually will be amongst us. And they will make an actual obvious announcement that they are here physically. And the more we develop technology, the more we marry our technology with their technology, it's like an apex point, okay, that we're going towards their direction, and eventually we'll meet them, and they will be amongst us. And the hybrids that have been spoken of by abductees, Sir David Jacobs, the people who spoke to him said they're just increasing year by year by year, and it's all towards the culmination point when they will make it absolutely clear that they exist. I personally think this may be the point they develop quantum computers. There's something about, I may be wrong, this is not something Nigel said, it's just something I've been considering recently. Once they can tap into the quantum reality that's the underbase beyond atoms, they will tap into the trapped souls that are on the edges of atoms and unable to go into this space between atoms where there's less force. And that will be the point at which they announce themselves. And there's all kinds of references to this in the Bible. One will be taken, one will be left. If you're resonant with them, it could mean that you'll be held and trapped by them. And there'll be some kind of polarization that happens in the future. And Nigel did speak about that.
Since my audience have watched many, many NDE videos, as well as a lot of alien-related videos, which book do you think would be the best one of Nigel's to start with?
I would suggest start with the third book, okay, because it's most relevant to now, and it's his thoughts that are most closely connected to what's going on in the world now. And if that grabs you, and if it fascinates you, get the second book. If that fascinates you, get his first book. His first book is only available via his website because it's out of print. The other two are still in print, and you can get them from Amazon, from most places online. But yeah, I would say start with the third, then go to the second, and then the first. If you want the first, contact us via the website, and you can get it from there. We have copies.
So if people want to contact you personally and ask you questions, should they do that from the website?
Yes, please. There's a contact us link at the website. Please contact me from the website. I'll be more than happy to reply to any questions. Absolutely. Yeah, please do.
Well, before we wrap it up, can you leave us with a last positive message?
Sure, absolutely. So when I know some people, very good people, right, who are feeling a sense of absolute desperation because of especially what's going on in the world at the moment in Palestine, and how unbelievably there's a genocide that's happening there, and it's being sanctioned by various governments. I know the British government has outlawed certain Palestinian rights groups and actually arresting protesters. And the UN has said it's a genocide. Even the BBC in Britain has said it's a genocide. They don't normally comment on these things. They're normally government mouthpieces. And these friends that I have, and I'm Jewish, so I can say this without being told I'm anti-Semitic, although some people, Jewish people, have been told they're anti-Semitic, which is quite remarkable. But that's all going on, and all kinds of other terrible things are going on in the world, although this is the worst ever. And those good people that I know are feeling powerless, unable to do anything, and it paralyzes them in their lives. And they can't do anything because they're so depressed, because it seems that the world's going mad. Okay, and the same with the technologies that are developing, and people are going full pelt off the precipice, accepting these, investing themselves into these technologies. And I would say for anybody who feels that way and feels desperate and just feels that they don't have any power or any control to do anything about the way the world is going, yes, you do. You have, every one of us has a connection to the Godverse, not only is a connection to the Godverse, is the Godverse, has that resource, the kingdom of heaven within them, within us. And everything you do to announce that glory of connection and love and bringing people together with your friends, with your family, with anyone, everything you do, that's what matters. That's what announces the Godverse in the universe. Keep doing it. Don't be paralyzed by the anxiousness and worry and fear of the craziness that's all around you. Keep announcing, keep translating the Godverse into the universe. So that will mean that when you die, you will be resonant with that. But not only that, you'll make it more likely that other people who are alive now will also be resonant with that. Don't try to control what you can't control. Control what you can control. And that's your own behavior, our own thoughts, our own feelings. So that's what I would like to leave you with. And anybody who does that, anybody who makes that connection, the grace can't touch them. The grace can't see them. They'll be non-physical when they die. They won't be trapped.
Danielle, Thank you for your message, and thank you for being my guest.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on. It's been a great pleasure.
The pleasure was all mine. Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.